Hey guys, welcome back to another Xcode 4.3 tutorial, and today we're going to add to the project elements and continue forward with some of the objects that Xcode actually provides for us. And today we're going to be going over the switch, which basically allows us to use a Boolean state value, as it says in the objects menu here, and allows us to control different elements with a simple on, off, or yes, no. And so that's what we're going to go over today. So what we're going to do is add a new view controller like we do in the previous tutorials. Drop a new view in there, view controller, sorry. And we'll just go ahead and throw the elements that we're going to use on this tutorial. One being the switch, so go ahead and throw that on board. And the second being, we'll use the segmented controller like we used in the previous tutorial. Now before we get started on actually hooking it up behind the scenes, we're going to go ahead and add our buttons so we can get continue on with our project elements. We're going to name this simply switch. We can make it look good later, and we are going to hook it up to our view controller so we inherit that navigational view controller like in the previous view controllers over here, so on and so forth. So you'll see that. Anyways, if you don't know what I'm talking about there, go back, check out, I think like 2 or 3 tutorials. I show you how to do everything in a more rundown version. Anyways, as we hook this view controller up, we're going to need a class associated with this view controller that's going to handle what the switch is going to do to the on-screen elements or what you want it to do for you with that class. So we're going to go over to the navigational bar over to the left, and we're going to simply right click and add a new file. And by doing that, you'll see you get prompted with some elements and some templates that you can choose. We are going to click in the Cocoa Touch iOS templates and go ahead and select the Objective-C class. Now in doing that, you'll get prompted for a class name, which we're just going to simply call Switch Controller, something like that. And make sure you're working within the realm of the subclass of a UI view controller. Now the only difference in that is, let's say if you're using a table view, so on and so forth, but just make sure you're within the UI view controller for that. None of these options should be selected, and go ahead and click next and create the classes within your project files there. Now as you see in the navigational controller over here, or navigational menu, those two elements appeared. We have a .h for our header and a .m for our implementation. I'll go into that here in a second. But before we go any further, we got to go back to our storyboard where we have to hook up the classes that we just created. And again, I'll do this in a slower version in one of the tutorials there. Click the view controller, go up to the identities, class, we're going to type switch controller, should autofill for you. And now we've got the actual classes associated to the view controller that we've created. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the editor, open up the side-by-side, and that's going to give us the ability to hook up our action, which you guys don't know exactly what we're doing yet, but you'll see here in a second. And then also hook up the outlets in association to our switch and our segmented controller. So now before we hook those up, we got to make sure that we're within the right class over to our assistant editor here. So as you can see up at the top, we are in the segment.m, which is the previous tutorial. So we're going to go ahead and click this little icon up here, go to recent files and find your switch controller.h, or whatever the class name that you associated the header file, the .h. So when you find the .h, you'll see that we've got a basic template of our UI view controller and the class associated to it. So now what we have to do is we have to put our action and our outlets, establish those within our header file here. Now the easiest way to do that is by clicking on the element on screen. So in this case we've got the switch, holding control, drag and click up, and you'll see we're prompted with an outlet, or you can switch it to an action there. In this case, we're going to first establish our outlet, which we'll just call this my switch, and go ahead and connect that element there. The next thing that we're going to do is establish our outlet for our segmented controller. And let me explain what we're going to be doing here, and it'll kind of make sense as we move forward. But basically what we're going to do is with this simple on-off switch, the user will load the UI view, which will show this view controller here, and it'll default to the on. So that'll give the user the ability to be able to click the segmented controller from first to second, so on and so forth. But we won't hook the segmented controller up yet. But it'll allow them to basically click and navigate between the segmented controller. Now when the user actually slides this to off, the switch, what we're going to do is we're going to disable our segmented controller. So at this point they won't actually be able to click the segmented controller. And for finishing touches, we're going to actually pull down the tint, or what they call the alpha, on our segmented controller, so it kind of goes to a maybe like a half gray or something like that. And it basically just helps the user understand that, oh yeah, this is disabled, I can't use this anymore. Alright, well anyways, a little exaggerated there, but we're just gonna add that in there to show you some more of the capabilities of the switch. So without further ado, hook up your outlet for your segmented controller. We're just gonna call this my seg, and the last thing that we're gonna do is we have to send an action to our element here. So basically when we call the off, we're going to be sending an action to the segmented controller and saying, hey, you go gray, or whatever we're going to do here. So take that, hook it up as an action, and we'll just call this seg toggle, because basically we're toggling between on and off. Alright, so you got all your actions and your outlets hooked up. Now, oh my goodness. Okay, this could be like a 30-minute tutorial. I'm gonna finish up the rest in the next tutorial. So stay tuned to part 2 of this, and we'll hook up the actual toggle switch and get everything working for you guys. Alright, we'll catch you guys in the next one.